We're getting started with the recording. So, Laurie, you are the wine coach and the wine educator. So, what you are doing is not what you were last doing, and what you were last doing was quite different. And so, I want you to share with the audience in about 5 minutes or less how you got to where you are today. Go.
Wow, the pressure, 5 minutes or less. I love it. I was going to say, I'm never doing what I was doing before. So that seems to be the new normal for me. I guess we'll talk a little bit about that later. But when I made the transition from software, I say the journey from the Jersey suburbs to software sales executive to sommelier. My last reinvention that we're talking about now, I guess, is from software salesperson to sommelier. And so I had, on paper, what everybody thought was an amazing job back in the good old days, which for our generation was the late 90s. Remember that money? And, I had a 6-figure sales job. I traveled the country and wined and dined clients in the food and beverage industry into buying our amazing software. And part of that was going out to restaurants, and which was one of my favorite parts, I must say. But I never felt comfortable ordering the wine. And in fact, I really was more of a beer drinker starting out than I was a wine drinker. But that uncomfortable situation of having to order wine, pronouncing it right, is it right for the food, is what drove me to really first start studying wine. And then as I got into it, I fell in love with it. I wanted to share it with my friends, teach everyone about it in a way that was fun and easy to understand, and without the attitude that I got actually in some restaurants asking for help or dealing with the sommelier. So like any sane person, I just quit my 6-figure software job in the beginning of 2001, moved to New York City with my now husband, Michael Forster, and started studying wine. Eventually, I worked at a wine store, worked in a restaurant, but found that teaching people about it, doing events, was the part I loved the most. And that's why in 2004, I started the wine coach. I felt like coach was a much more inviting word than sommelier. And so now I just coach people to have more fun with wine. And it started out just as a once a month wine tasting. And now it's kind of morphed into, I focus on corporate events, fundraisers, and speaking around the country, doing radio, TV, etc.
You are the
Is that 5 minutes?
Oh yeah, way less, and you're good. One thing that we haven't done yet, though, Laurie, is toast each other. So why don't we do that, and why don't we talk about what we are drinking, because this is coordinated tonight, folks.
I know.
So Laurie, you begin because you are the coach, please.
Sure. Well, cheers. I'm using, I don't know if you can see my unusually ginormous wine glass that I have here.
But it's very Scandal.
I know. It is the exact glass they use on Scandal. I'm a huge Olivia Pope fan. She has my vote for president. This is the Camille glass you can get at Crate and Barrel, and it's the exact one they use in the taping.
Oh, cool.
In my glass, I just got back a few weeks ago from the Willamette Valley in Oregon, and
hold it straight for a while. Hold it straight for a second. There you go.
Willamette Valley Vineyards Estate Pinot Noir 2013. I have. Jim Bruneau is a good friend of mine. He's the owner of the vineyards. He wrote the foreword to my book, The Sipping Point, and he hosted me at the winery a few weeks ago, and I got to walk around and taste the grapes right on the vine. It was amazing.
How fun. And so, of course, I tried to coordinate with you, and so I am having Willamette Valley Vineyard wines. I'm having a 2013 whole cluster.
Yes.
I said to Laurie, see if you can find this vineyard. And I said, I found this bottle. I know it's probably different than what you are having. I don't know what whole cluster is, so that's what I wanted to have. And you told me.
Yeah, so with the whole cluster, what they do is they put all the grapes in the cluster. They don't break them apart too much. They put them all into the tank. And they try to do it very gently. And yes, there's some juice in the tank, but some of the berries actually, and it's without air, it's anaerobic, some of the berries actually start to ferment within the berry. so they're not split open. And it's a process called carbonic maceration. They use it in Beaujolais, if you've ever had Beaujolais, and it produces red wines that are fruitier and softer and just really fun. So it's a little bit more of an everyday fruit forward version than the estate Pinot that I have, but both are delicious.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this. And I want to say, for the audience's benefit, if you are seeing Laurie a little jerky or a little slow, we recognize that we're having a video connection on Laurie's end, and she is frowny face and sad. But please just listen to what she's saying, because your voice is fine, Laurie.
Okay, great. Yeah, I live on the Eastern Shore in Maryland. My husband is a private chef here, so we're not in any kind of metropolitan area, and I guess my connection's not as good as yours. So,
well, like knock wood. Okay, let's not have my connection go bad either. So, Laurie, I want to start by, you had the inspiration to pursue this knowledge as you continue to learn it, but you took a pretty big leap, and I didn't hear you talk about you hated your job, or that you always wanted to be a sommelier. So
right.
Really, how did you screw up the courage to do this?
Wow. I don't, certainly I made my little joke about the late 90s, and, we were, making really good money doing what we were doing in the software world. And I'm sure a lot of other people were in finance and around. So I actually did save a good amount of money. And I lived very inexpensively. I lived in downtown Baltimore with a roommate, all that kind of good stuff. So I had a nice nest egg that allowed me the ability to walk away for a period of time. And really what I did was I asked for a sabbatical. I don't know if you remember those, but I really asked for a 3-month sabbatical. And in the beginning of January 2001, Michael, my husband, and I went over to Australia for a month and toured wineries and had a lot of fun. And then we moved to New York. And when my 3 months was up, I said, you know what? I don't think I'm coming back. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't just like, boom, I'm leaving, I'm out. I did have that 3 months to kind of wrap my mind around it. We moved, and then I really felt like I just wanted to give myself the time to explore this a little bit. And, I felt like I could always go back if I wanted to.
Great.
So crazy, though.
Well, you look back on it, right? It might not have. Let me ask you, did it seem crazy at the time?
You know what? I didn't feel like it was crazy at the time. Maybe I'm just crazy, but I really was at a place where I didn't want that lifestyle of being on the road all the time. I wanted to be able to, have some sort of home life. I had this new relationship. I was engaged with my husband, and we were, just starting to live together. So I really wanted things out of my life that I knew I couldn't have with that job, and that made it a little bit easier. I don't suggest people run out and quit their day jobs if you're reinventing, because sometimes it's good to try before you buy, whether that's wine or jobs, because you don't know what you don't know. But for me, it was the right way to do it. I was just ready to rip off the Band-Aid and try something new. And I guess I felt, hey, if it doesn't work out, I can always go back and sell software.
Right. So, which came first, the passion for the wine or the curiosity? Which led you down this path?
The curiosity or the passion? Wow, what a question. You're good. I think the curiosity was certainly my first part, because there's probably a good year and a half while I was still in the software world selling and traveling. If I had to go to San Francisco, I would pop over to Napa and go to some wineries, and I started collecting wine and going to wine tastings. In fact, I met Michael Forster, my husband, at a food and wine pairing event in Baltimore, where I was just there as a guest to learn. I didn't get any of the cooking skills. Thankfully.
What do you need the cooking skills for? You married to a chef.
Exactly. But I did meet a gorgeous chef, and it just reinforced why I love food and wine so much together, and that's a big part of our life. So the curiosity, I think, came, and then once you learn more, then the passion builds. and there you are, you're in the full throes of a love affair with wine.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate your risk tolerance?
On the scale from 1 to 10, oh, I guess it changes over time, but certainly I think that my risk tolerance goes up as we go along. I mean, I started the business. It was a small kind of part-time thing, really, because my daughter was only a year old. I really wasn't in a position to do a full-on business, but I just started doing women's wine tastings once a month, right? And then I started doing them twice a month, and it rolled along that way. A few years back, 5, 6 years ago, I think, some of the people that are watching right now know I checked off a bucket list to try out stand-up comedy. And it was one of the things I've always wanted to do, but I never had the guts to do it because I don't think there's many things aside from jumping out of airplanes and such that are as risky as standing up in front of a crowd and telling a joke and having no idea if it's going to work or not.
Right.
It's sort of like being naked on stage. And so now I've done that. I've had great shows. I've had situations where I've bombed before, and once that happens, it's awful, but you get through it, and then everything looks easy next to that. I mean, it really is. So I think your risk tolerance goes up as you expose yourself to new things. And every year I try to do one thing that scares the heck out of me. And it just changes every year. Last December, I co-starred in a play here at our Avalon Theater here in Easton. I was Doris in Miracle on 34th Street. So that was my, scary thing. But you learn so much out of these different experiences that you can bring back to your business, your career, whatever you're doing. It just kind of keeps you fresh, I guess.
So that's really interesting. Do you, it sounds like you like to confront your fears.
I would say, that's really, for me, it's the best way of doing it. I hate flying, but I love traveling. That's one I haven't kicked yet. But usually a couple glasses of wine and it goes okay.
Right.
But yeah, I do think, when I'm in periods of flying a lot, because I get those periods of time where I'm traveling a lot, it's so much smoother because you're just used to it. You're used to it. So the more you get out there and try different things and confront whatever you're afraid of, I do feel like it, hey, you might not be perfect at it, but you realize, okay, it's not that big of a deal.
Right, right. And I know that you do a lot of things, I'll say a lot of firsts, and you, to me, it's not necessarily risky, but it's not also like the norm or
traditional
or easy.
Right.
You put yourself out there a lot, and when you're somebody who puts yourself out there, I know I never know quite how it's going to go.
Right.
So you just do it, and I wonder if that was an attribute of yours before you left your job and started reinventing.
I think so. I think more so now, because when you're an entrepreneur, you have more opportunity to do that in the corporate world, because, we sort of made a short story, but I spent some time at Kraft Foods. So I've been in big corporate roles. Then I was in software with a startup company where I was the first woman to ever work in sales. And now I have my own company. So I've kind of seen a lot of different scenarios. So when you have your own gig, you have a lot more opportunity to take these risks. But I'm also, really trying to go at wine in a very authentic way, and what makes sense to me and what I think seems fun. And maybe in the very beginning of my business, I looked at what everybody else was doing and like, okay, this is how you do a wine tasting. Okay, this is how you do a wine dinner. And then I was like, that doesn't feel right to me. That's not my personality. I want people using jelly beans to talk about how you smell your wine. I want to throw some jokes in there. I want people, playing games and more interactive. And that's more my personality, and it just feels more authentic.
Okay, good. So when you were first getting started, and you said that you did it on a part-time basis because you had a young daughter, but you also did do it when you had a young daughter,
I know.
and you were going, once you embraced this, you were going full gusto. So your daughter was still pretty a young thing while you were traipsing all over the country and being crazy, not in a bad way, just trying to make your business work. And
Right.
this is a business that is definitely an immersive, people-oriented business. You are a coach. What are you, a coach of wine bottles? No, you're a coach of people. So you had to get in front of your audience and make it work. And I wonder kind of what your what kind of thoughts went through your head, and what was your range of your emotional scale as you did this?
Mm. Well, I stayed at home mom, if you want to stay at home mom, whatever you called it, with Michaela, my daughter, who's now 12, for the first year and a half. And I've always been a worker, one who has had a job and full all in on my career. Um, and I have to say, that's the hardest job I ever had, was that 16 months of being home. So when you're a mom at home with a little kid, you are looking for ways to get out of the house now. And that will drive a lot of great business innovation, I think. But so, I think certainly I was craving that creative outlet, that interface with other adults, the ability to really use my skills. And so, I was motivated, in a big way. But I had a coach, and I've worked with life coaches throughout the process of making the transition and building my business. What is it? 2004 is when I started. So what's that, 11 years ago? And, I had one coach that said, owning your own business is the biggest exercise in personal development you'll ever go on. And so, more so than any other type of job or thing that you do, when you start your own business, it's not just the business you're doing, you're also learning about yourself and evolving. And you have to kind of do a little bit of everything, so you develop parts of yourself that maybe weren't developed before.
Right. And so how did you feel about all this at that time?
I guess I'm kind of a leap first, look later kind of person. Maybe not always the greatest, but I think I was excited. Certainly there's always setbacks. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, I just started the business and everything's fabulous, because there's always people that, she's crazy. Why is she being so flip about wine? It should be more serious, all of those sorts of things. But I was so excited and so passionate about what I was doing that, you just try to focus on that, and not, there's always the haters and the people that are not doing anything, that are there to just criticize. And, I always think, I don't know if you've read any Brene Brown, but her Daring Greatly book, which is amazing. And there's a quote, and I'll have to try to find it, and you can send it out to people, but it's not the critic that matters. It's the person who's in the trenches, getting beaten up, that's dealing with all that. There's always people going to say something. Just focus on what you love and what you're trying to bring to the world. And I feel like that'll keep you going.
Great. And you mentioned just a minute ago that you've worked with a coach and you've worked with life coaches. So coaching's on your, in your toolkit. Is there anything else that you did, used, or a resource that you could recommend to other people as they might be considering their reinvention journey and getting started?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think support is huge. For me, definitely I had coaches. I've also joined along the way different networking or mastermind groups where I was able to really connect with other business owners, not even in the wine space. Sometimes it's so great to have that person, like you and I have stayed in contact for a long time with our different businesses. And it's just really, you get ideas from different industries that you won't just staying in your own little bubble. Because I really want, to come at wine in my own way. I don't want to have the preconceived notions and if I did, when I started, they're like, okay, you work in a restaurant, you work in a wine store, or you sell wine for a distributor. Boom, that's what you do. I don't want to do any of those. I want to do my own thing. I want to, speak to corporate groups and speak to women's groups. And so I think, networking it with other entrepreneurs in different industries. And then, now I even one of those people that I met along the way, every Friday we do a quick check-in. Here's what I'm working on. Can you help me with this? It's just that accountability. Doesn't have to be a life coach, but somebody that's going to call you on the carpet. Hey, you said you were going to do that. I don't see those videos on YouTube you said you were going to create. Where are they? Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's my one of my things is to start doing more videos. And it's hard. You get a little mind block about making them on your own. You want them to be perfect, but that's not even the way the world is anymore.
Right, exactly.
Like, just do it.
Just do it. Exactly. That's good advice too.
Right.
So what's been the most rewarding part about your reinvention journey?
The most rewarding part. Of course, I love people and I love wine. So I found a way to put those two loves together, which is amazing. I'm always meeting new people. Every week is different than the last, so I'm never bored. That is something that I'm really loving, but also that I control my lifestyle. Now, sometimes I have a really crappy boss, I got to tell you, because she has me working all the time. But I'm the one that decides I'm going to work this weekend, or I'm going to take off the week of Thanksgiving, or, so I like with a family and my husband's a chef, so he has a wacko job too. We don't have a normal 9 to 5 Monday through Friday situation. So I like being able to control my life where I can live anywhere and do what I'm doing now.
Yep.
So.
And so what's been the most challenging part?
My little doggie is barking out there. She wants to come in. The most challenging part, my boss. No. I think it would be separating yourself and having that home life. I have an office in my home. So when I'm not speaking on the road or, doing TV or doing radio, I'm up here in my home office, and I may go down for dinner, but I can still hear the phone ringing up here. I still know the work is here. My computer's here. And so it's tough not to be working every night or work on weekends and just unplug from the Facebook and the Twitter. And by the way, I'm at the Wine Coach. At the Wine Coach. You can find me everywhere.
So what about failure? What's been your worst failure during this reinvention?
Worst failure. Wow. Everything's a learning experience. It really is. I don't know. That's such a good question. I think, it takes longer to build revenue-wise and year-round business and try to get, people must know out there if they're also entrepreneurs, up and down. It'd be nice, when you're working for a corporation, you get the same paycheck every 2 weeks, you know what you're dealing with, and just being able to develop enough of a pipeline that you've always got new business coming in, and you can sort of, at least to some extent, maintain, a consistent amount of revenue, but you also have to know every August, that's a slow month for me. Every December actually is kind of a slow month for me too. And so you just start to learn and you just build that in.
Right.
In the beginning, I didn't look at the numbers that much. I'm not a big numbers person. And so, I was just like, if I just keep working hard and doing what I'm doing, and it's all going to work out. And, now I have a bookkeeper, and we're looking every month at the numbers and the cost and revenue and all of that. So I probably didn't do a great job of that in the beginning, but I didn't even care if I made money in the beginning. I just,
because you had your little nest egg that you had planned for.
Yeah, exactly.
So what specific lessons or pieces of advice would you give to folks who are considering reinventing right now, but haven't made the leap? And if we can make these some concrete, not the, warm and fuzzy stuff, but do this, do that. What kind of specific advice would you give to people now?
Yep. I do a keynote talk without wine, believe it or not. Different, yes. And it's called You Uncorked the Recipe for a Delicious Life. And, I feel like I've built a delicious life, and there's 3 steps, and they're the same 3 steps to order a great glass of wine. The first one is knowing your palate. Know what you really like and what you're good at. That's really hard. It sounds easy, but it's the hardest skill in wine tasting and in life, right? And so in that step, one of the things I did along with my coach in the beginning is I sent an email to my very close friends and family. I think it was 10 people. And I said, what do you think my biggest skills or gifts are? If you would share that with me. And it was so interesting. And it's actually out of a book from Dan Sullivan called Unique Ability. And it's interesting to see what other people see, because a lot of times your unique gift is something that you do and you don't even know you're doing it. Yeah. Right? It's just so natural. Take it for
granted, right?
Exactly. And so that was really helpful and helped me sort of put together, because I thought about I'm trained as a life coach. I thought about coaching for a while, all of these different areas, but it was great to get that feedback and a reinforcement. Some things I didn't see, and it was good. The second thing is ordering what you want. And a lot of times, people say, oh, that's easy. I'll have a Pinot Grigio. Oh my gosh, don't drink a Pinot Grigio every time. Try some new things. But when you order what you want, sometimes we think we have to order just what's on the menu. And you know what? There's a lot of things out there today that you can do that weren't out there 10 years ago. And it's because somebody started it off. So sometimes there are things you can order that aren't even on the menu. Mm-hmm. And all you have to do is ask, right?
Right.
So, for instance, doing radio, I started doing radio here in Easton on a small station we have, only because I met the program manager and said, hey, do you do anything about wine on the radio? No. Great. Let's do something. I had no business asking. I had no experience on radio, but he was open to it, and, things kind of snowballed from there. So just asking, and what's the worst thing that can happen? They can say no.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
and Laurie, we got to get to point 3 because we're at the top of the hour when I get the Q&A in.
Okay, certainly. And point 3, savor every sip. So once you have your glass, which I have here, savor it, enjoy it. And that's like life. Remember, every morning, what are you grateful for? Do something for yourself. Don't be work. Believe me, I have a lot of fun too.
Awesome.
As you know.
So, like I said, everybody, now is your chance to ask Laurie some questions.
Yay.
So, to do it, if you joined in late, go down to either the bottom toolbar or the side toolbar of your Zoom window, and you can type in a question at the Q&A. So, we're going to give you folks a few seconds here to get those fingers clacking. And,
yes.
And Laurie can tell us a joke now.
Sure. Well, I would love to know what everybody's got in their glass and what is everybody drinking that's out there. I mean, that would be very interesting.
That would be very fun. If anybody brought any wine to the table. Did anybody drink a glass of wine while we were talking?
Oh, come on. I know at least Paul Cullen, who's out there, is drinking something. I'm sorry.
Paul on the carpet, right? Oh, Paul, you've been unmasked.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, hopefully there's some questions out there. But one of the things people are forever asking me about is ordering wine at a restaurant. So that's I always have little tips. One of my big tips, and I know you'll love this, is to just stall. Give yourself some time to really take in the wine list. Order something bubbly. I'm a huge champagne, prosecco,
cava.
I love it. Cava. Order some sparkling wine. It goes great with appetizers, and it gives you time to figure out that 100-page wine list if that's what you're dealing with.
That's a great piece of advice.
Exactly.
So Paul did step up to the table, and since he's been so bold, we should give Paul a little plug.
Sure. He's a good friend.
Paul's a friend of Laurie's, and I happen to know, and I have interviewed Paul, totally unrelated. So you will see Paul's story on our Reinvention website when it launches soon. But Paul asks, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And he's drinking a Sangiovese from Chianti Classico country.
Ooh, good choice, Paul. I love it. I knew it would be Italian.
Of course.
Where do I see myself in 5 years? I really want, and I think I alluded to it earlier, I'd really like to be doing more visual medium. So I would say TV show, but it doesn't have to be network TV necessarily, but I'd like to be doing, I got the ability or the great honor of meeting Anthony Bourdain on Monday in New York and interviewing him for my radio show. But I would love that to be more visual and be like a web TV series or something where people, because I think wine is such a visual medium, and I love doing radio, but I would like people to also be able to see what's happening and see the conversation or see me out traipsing around the Oregon's Willamette Valley. So more of that, more, speaking. I love what I'm doing, and I just want to reach more people. So whatever ways I can reach more wine lovers and make wine more fun for millions more, that's what I want to do. That's what I'm looking to figure out.
So wine will still be in your world in 5 years from now, no
Absolutely.
doubt.
Absolutely.
And we have another question from Sean. What was the point or event that made you realize that your business was working and was something that you could truly last in your life?
I mean, certainly truly working. I mean, there's two sides to that, right? I mean, there's the financial side. I mean, you have to be profitable. I mean, a hobby is money doesn't matter, but a business, money does matter. So there's certainly the financial side, but given my whole story, obviously that's not the most important thing to me, because lifestyle and control of my life and doing what I love, I don't half the time feel like I'm working. So that's how I want to go through life. So financially, when I started becoming profitable, that was huge for me, but also just that, that other people were attracted to my message, to what I was offering, that people wanted the education or edutainment, as I call it. And so, the fact that I could share that with people and it was helpful to them, through people that listen to my radio show or see me speak or come to my website, whatever way we connect, it's great. It's like when I do my wine comedy, which you got to see a little of with Paul in Wilmington.
Yep.
As a comedian, when you're doing your comedy in between our wine tasting, right away if it's working or not, right?
Right.
You get feedback. So there's two sides. There's sort of the fulfillment of sharing your gift, and then there's also the financial side.
Right.
Because, hey, it's life.
And in follow up to Sean's question, so can you tell us when that was? Was it, year X, year Y?
I think it was about 5 years in, really, before I really started seeing, the money that I wanted to see, that I was like, okay, which I know probably set, I mean, it's easy to, break even, but you want to feel like you're being paid for your gifts. So I think it was about, halfway through. Yeah. But, it's nice once you get to that point, and there's sort of, my book cheekily is named The Sipping Point.
Hold it up. Hold it steady. You're
oh, I know. I'm jerky.
The Sipping Point. Okay. Excellent.
So there is that tipping point. And once, you get over the tipping point, it's, it can go exponential. I'm also really like a nut about investing in my knowledge and travel and my business. So I've invested a lot more maybe into this business than some people might think necessary. So maybe you could have done it quicker, but I was really passionate about putting everything back in and, building what I exactly wanted.
And to add on to that, was there like a sigh of relief or some sort of when you realized like you had crossed your threshold in that tipping point? Did you recognize it? Did you acknowledge it to yourself?
No, I'm never happy. No. There's always something more.
Folks.
There's always something more I could be doing, right? There's always the next.
Right.
If I was a person to just be happy with what comes, you know what I mean? That I don't think I would probably be in this business or this, have my own, because there's always something more you can achieve. And so, yeah, I do try to take some time and say, wow, that was really great. This is awesome. But then there's always the next hill that I want to climb. So I guess I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. We did have a weigh-in from Diane, who said, this is Diane from Clarksville, and she's drinking a Sin Fronteras Los Primos y
Ooh.
Masario Montoya. Did I get that right?
Ah.
In her Naked Wines case shipment. I guess she
Oh,
might have
very
something to
good.
do with that.
Well, is it Naked Winery from, oh, let's see. I see it right here. Naked Wines. Oh, okay. So there's a club, Naked Wines. I believe that's what she's talking about. Ooh. Yes, and I do know Diane too. Hello, Diane.
Hey, see, you and your
Very cool. Cheers.
friend.
Cheers to that.
Cheers, cheers. So we have a couple more questions.
Mhm.
A comment back from Paul who says, I think that he's talking about doing more video. He says he couldn't agree more. Thinking about doing the same for my brand. Paul, why don't you give your brand, type it in, so we'll give you some shout out for your participation.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, in the background here, my daughter drew some pictures for all of you, Michaela. So there's some wine bottle and glass. And then up there, I shamelessly put thewinecoach.com, people. Okay.
Can you tell the woman is a good self-promoter, folks? You know?
Well, I told you about the time that Michaela had to draw the picture of her parents' jobs, right?
No.
It was a picture of my husband with a large bloody knife and me drinking wine straight from the bottle.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Is this in your comedy routine?
It is. The nuns loved it. The nuns loved it. Okay. Yeah. It is from it. You remember.
So, I have a question here from Terry who says, 5 years is a long time. Did you ever think you might not make it?
Oh, did I ever think yeah, I mean, yes, I think there's always those moments along the way. I mean, and still, where I have things that I want to achieve that I haven't yet. And it starts to feel like, gosh, I've been trying for this for such a long time. In April, I got to be on the Dr. Oz show, and doing a national TV show was a huge goal of mine. I never thought it would be Dr. Oz. That kind of came way out of the blue. But yeah, there are moments where I'm like, why don't I just get an easy desk job somewhere, where I can get a regular paycheck and I can drink wine at night. No. So I certainly have those moments, but typically I have a pity party for that night, and then the next morning I get up and I move on. And
I think that applies even if you're not an entrepreneur.
Yes.
If you're an intrapreneur, which is an entrepreneur who's employed at their job, but they're entrepreneurial in their job, you might have lousy days where you can't get what you want done. Folks, we are up against our 10 after, and I don't want to keep you guys too long, but I want to say that, first of all, I did give Paul the opportunity. His website is tuneyourpalate.com. Paul is a musician who will cook you a private wine dinner in your home, and he's great. And then Sean says, do you make your own wine, and do you do it for fun or as a branded item that you sell? So that will be our last question. Of course, if you have other questions, folks, you can still send them either in, or we'll have Laurie answer them offline and distribute them out to all of you. Okay, so I don't want to cut anybody off. But Laurie, do you make your own wine?
I don't make my own wine, but I consume a lot of it. I appreciate great winemaking. I've actually made my own beer before. That was a few years ago. But I do have a Wine of the Month club where people can get monthly shipments of different wines. But I have not actually made my own wine.
Well, there you have it. That could be on your new bucket list.
Yeah, there you go.
So before we turn ourselves completely off, I do want to share my screen again with everybody and get you over to you, Laurie. This is how you can get a hold of Laurie, folks. She is at thewinecoach.com. She is also on Twitter and pretty active at The Wine Coach, so she's got a good brand there. For any of you who might be interested in other stories of reinvention delivered live, please join us at our website, reinventionworks.com/webcasts. And you can find us on Twitter. We had to cut off our S because the Twitter's restrictions. So we're just singular there, Reinvention Work. And we're always looking for sponsors of our webcast. So if you happen to be in the business of promoting to an audience in transformation and deliberate change, we'd love to hear from you. next week's guest is Judy Knight. She's the founder of New Tricks. She's been all over the map from, she worked in software too. She was the CEO of a software company. She's been in real estate development. She's based down in Atlanta, and they had a big implosion of the real estate market. So she had to find a new gig, find new tricks. So later in life, she reinvented, and she now designs websites for small businesses, and she's got a little company. So New Tricks is very apropos. You can register, and we encourage you to tell your friends. And at the last Wednesday of the month, we do not have a live webcast. We have a tweet chat. And so you'd find us on Twitter talking about a specific topic and using our hashtag ReinventionWorks. So everybody, and Laurie especially, thank you so much. Laurie, do you have any last words of promotion or plugs you want to give before we say goodbye?
Oh, well, thank you so much, everybody, for letting me drink some wine with you tonight and share some of my journey. I actually have a free 4-point e-course all about wine glasses and food and wine pairing and all kinds of great stuff. If you go to the winecoachsecrets.com, you just give me your email and we'll send you one video a day and you'll be smarter in 4 days.
Awesome. That's great. Fantastic. Well, everybody, I thank you for joining us. I hope you join us again. I hope you had fun. I hope you had a good glass of wine. See you next week.
Cheers.
Bye all. Cheers.